Oh my goodness. Me too. I'm reading all your comments. I'm like, me too. Me too. Yeah, you see me. I've been watching you for a few minutes. Yay, you're all here. Welcome to Soul Shift Session 1 of 2021. Oh my goodness. I am here. You are here. We are here. Oh, I'm so happy. I am so happy, I can't even tell you. I'll be even happier when I find a lighter. I know I put a lighter here somewhere for myself. Oh no, do I not have fire again today? Hold on. I have to have fire. Gosh, I'll be happy when this pandemic is over and Team SG is back with me. How are you guys? We have big work ahead of us tonight, everyone. I actually put a lighter out for myself, and I don't understand because I literally set it down earlier today, and it didn't want to be here. But the good news is I have some other things to show you. So, and I'm arriving for some of you right at 11:11, which I love. I have good news. So I get to show you the reveal of your Alchemize for February. This just arrived home to me today. I'm so excited to show you. So this is one of your tools for February. We had these made for you. So you have until the 14th, I think, at midnight. Alexis, if you're here, you can tell us what day, what time they have to make sure they registered for their tools. I don't even know. I just work here. Alexis and Claire are in charge. But anyway, your February tools include this beautiful Alchemize that just arrived at Sage Goddess today with a golden handle, which after tonight's class is going to make so much sense to you. If you're like, why a golden handle? After tonight, you're going to be like, no, I totally get it. And we're going to do some cord narrowing next month. So anyway, I'm ready for that. Welcome to session 1. Welcome to Soul Shift. Who's new here? My heart is pounding because this is the first class of a whole new year. I wish I could show you. I mean, so first of all, you have to know the second half of this notebook from here forward, so from this page forward, was all the preparation of 2020 for Soul Shift of this year. So this notebook is complete. I even wrote on the last page of it. So this notebook gets retired tonight. And then this notebook is Soul Shift 2021, and I have 3 full pages for tonight. So I'm going to start by saying Soul Shift Session 1 for 2021 has begun. And I want to welcome you in. Look at that. We have so many new family members in our Soul Shift community. I want to welcome you in. If you're new, you hopefully won't be new for long. You're going to feel part of the mix, part of the family. And if you're not new, like me, if you're old, I hope you feel really excited too. Every time we start a new class, a new curriculum, a new year, a new cycle, a new whatever it is, the feeling is just pure excitement. It's pure anticipation. And so after tonight, you know, we kind of drop in and we embody the work that we're doing. But I have a lot planned for tonight, so let's see how far we get. Like I said, I don't want to overwhelm you, but I want to excite you and get you ready. So session 1 has begun for Soul Shift 2021. I'm going to burn a little white sage, which just feels good to help us drop in to this experience together. So I want to invite you to take a nice deep breath, a cleansing breath, just to be fully present in the moment. Are you ready to jump in? I like it. Kiana says, I'm here for round 2. So Soul Shift 2021, it is great energy. I agree with you. We are starting a whole new cycle together tonight. And I want to, my intention tonight, let's start there. My intention tonight is to excite you, to bring you some energy of anticipation, to prepare you for the year ahead, and to also ground you in to the work that is about to begin. I want to remind you that Alexis, who's here with me, and do not worry, a couple things. This is really important for me to remember to tell you. So those of you who are commenting, you're helping to remind me. First of all, I was a college professor for a long time, and I was very strict about attendance. If you weren't right on time, you lost points, which is kind of funny because I'm always late. But when I was a university professor, I wasn't late, so I always took points off for people who didn't sign up right at the beginning or weren't there right at the beginning. So I want to reassure you, and I want to relax you. Like, I want to drop your shoulders and massage your shoulders and tell you, you cannot screw this up. You're never late. Please hear me when I tell you this. I'm going to take the first 5 minutes to tell you that Soul Shift is not a university class. It's not like any other class. Whenever you get here, that's when it starts. Even if you're an hour late, even if you miss the whole live session and watch the recording, you're not late. You're right on time. There's no way to screw this up. There's no way to be late. There's no way to fail at all. I'm here for you. And this class is a multi-dimensional experience. So it doesn't depend on what time zone you're in, or where you are in the world, or how you're feeling today. Maybe you're having a shitty day and you want to watch this tomorrow. You're right on time. Maybe you're super excited to be here right now, so you're just like, yes, I want to be here right now on Wednesday. Then you're right on time. If you don't watch this until November, you're right on time. There will be people who do not watch this right now, okay? So there are no mistakes. You can't screw it up. You're never late. You don't have to come in here and go, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. Being late is third dimension. Being late is human, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. You can't be late to this because we're not in the third dimension. We're working multidimensionally this year. So please, no apologies. No, I'm sorry. No, anything. You're exactly where you need to be whenever you need to be there. And I don't mind if you watch this 2 weeks from now, a month from now, 6 months from now. It does not matter to me. Your spirit guides are kind of in control. Okay? So let go of all of that. It's very human of you. And I really do appreciate it. I appreciate people saying, oh, I'm late. I'm sorry. What'd I miss? Even Camelia's like, I'm late again, but you're not, right? So I'm going to spend the first few minutes of tonight's class teaching you about what it means to be in Soul Shift, because I need you to really receive this, not just hear me, but I want you to receive this in your body, mind, and spirit, okay? I don't care what you're wearing. I wear clothing so that you don't feel uncomfortable, because if I was naked, for some of you, that would be really weird. But if you're naked, if you're laying down, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. So I'm here to make you comfortable, but you don't have to be here to make me comfortable. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, it's totally appropriate. You don't have to take notes. And honestly, I hate clothes. I really do. I don't own a lot of clothing. Probably surprises you. Maybe it doesn't. I don't own a lot of clothing. I don't like clothes. I think they're uncomfortable and I don't enjoy them. But I do wear them for your own, like your well-being and so that you feel comfortable and all those things. But you do you, okay? I taught university classes for like 20 years and it exhausted me because I had to have rules and an attendance book and a grade book and I had to make sure you passed, and if you failed then I had to submit that to the university and you didn't get your diploma and all those things. There's a reason I retired from that. I don't want to do that anymore. You're here, you're free, and I am so here for whatever you need this class to be. So you are not late, you're just perfect. I don't want you to change. I don't want you to be anything other than who you are. You are so just here at the right time. It's the right place. There's nothing you need to adjust or transform. Take the pressure off. That's right. No pressure. There's no pressure on you tonight. Put your notebook down, put your pen down, put everything down. Just be here now. I'll take care of the rest. Class notes, Susan, will magically appear to you from Alexis, who's here with me live tonight. Alexis, maybe you can post and just reassure them about how notes work and what that looks like. No pressure. Okay, I am totally here. I am in service to you. So is Alexis. That's part of the benefit of being here. The other thing I want to tell you is, some people join Soul Shift, okay? And they don't even join the Facebook group because they're just here to receive. They're here to learn. They're here to enjoy. They're here to embody. They're not here for pressure. They're not here for social conformity. They're just here to be. They're just here to be. So just know you have brothers and sisters who are in this group, never going to join the Facebook group. You may never meet them in the Facebook group, but they're here. They're here for the learning experience. And I appreciate that too. So however you choose to learn, this class will meet you where you are. This class isn't going to be like other classes you take. And I say that as someone who takes other online classes. This class doesn't shut off. You'll get messages when you're sleeping. You'll get messages when you're awake. You'll get messages when you're driving around on a Thursday and we haven't even had class. You'll start getting downloads. You'll start getting messages about what you're supposed to be doing or how you're supposed to be doing it. And that's part of the class. And I can't explain that to you because it's multidimensional, but there are other frequencies happening, other lessons happening, other experiences happening. And that is still part of Soul Shift. Even if it's not coming out of my mouth, even if it's not coming out of the group or whatever, when you said yes to this experience, you said yes to all of these energies starting to form around you and create a container for you to grow and develop, okay? So all of that is Soul Shift. When I speak to you, it's okay not to listen. And as a professor, when I say that to you, it freaks me out. I would never have told my freshmen this, okay? But I'm telling you, sometimes when I speak, there's another conversation happening, okay? And so some people in this class sit through the whole class, but they hear other things. They're not listening to me. They're listening to their spirit guides. They're listening to, and that's also part of the experience. That's called the meta conversation. There's a bigger conversation happening. So sometimes the universe brings you here so that you kind of like participate in this, but there's some other conversation happening that has nothing to do with this. And it's all about your development. It's very unique and personal to you. And that's what you're here for too. And that's why there are no quizzes, there are no tests, there's nothing like that here. And it's not because I don't believe in tests and quizzes. I used to give them professionally for decades, okay? It's because the universe knows whether you're learning or not. And do you know how I know whether you're learning or not? It's through your embodiment. It's through your embodiment. When you show up in the world and say, you know what? I'm not a victim anymore. You know what? Who I am is good enough. You know what? This is my authentic self. Take it or leave it. When I see that stuff, that's how I know you're learning. That's how I know you're evolving. That's how I know you're here. And so I look to those posts from you and those expressions from you and those experiences from you, because those tell me, yeah, she's here. They're here. They're learning. They understand. They see that this is more than just a human experience. This is, wow, I'm here to become a newer, a brighter, a lighter, and I mean lighter in weight, lighter in energy, lighter in effervescence, lighter in like the vibration, the frequency of who you are. When you show up like that, that's how I know you're learning. And I don't need a test to prove it. I don't need any posts from you to prove it. I don't need any affirmation from you to prove it. I see it in you, right? So I just want to share that with you. That is really important to know about Soul Shift. And I've never taken a class where anybody said that. Ever. But I'm telling you that because you may take this class and go, well, if I didn't show and prove and take a test and get a 99% and, check this box and check that box, that I didn't learn everything. You'll know if you're learning in this class, and it'll show up in your life. It'll show up in your body being in less pain. It'll show up in your relationship getting healthier. It'll show up in your relationships being cleaner. It'll show up in you judging yourself a little bit less, right? Does that make sense to you? Do you have any questions about that? Because if you're looking for affirmation, perfectionism, check the boxes, get an A on the quiz, this class is going to frustrate you because you're not going to get all of that. But at the same time, I know when people are learning, and I know when they're not. And when they're learning, it's because they show up and they embody the essence and the energy and the medicine. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So if you ever think to yourself, does she see me? I want you to know right now, I see you. I'm watching. I pay attention. My spirit guides lead me and say, watch that. Look at what she just said. Look at what she just sent you. Look at what she just posted. Look at what they just said. Look at that post. And I get to see all the different ways where you are stepping up and embodying and embracing. And that for me is far beyond a test, right? And you don't need me to see you. That's the other thing I have to tell you. It doesn't matter if I see you or not. I'm one human being just like you. So me seeing you isn't even that important, but I want you to know that I do. I do see you. I'm watching. I'm proud of you. I appreciate you. And you bring a lot of beauty to my life. But you cannot screw this up. And for a lot of us, I'll speak personally, there have been a lot of places in my life where I always felt like no matter what, I was going to screw it up. Right? And for me, it's been a blessing to know there's certain places in my life where I can't screw it up. I can't make a mistake. And you can't make a mistake here. You're going to be fine. And you're going to grow, and you're going to achieve, and you're going to learn, and you're going to evolve. And there's no right way, and there's no wrong way. There's just a path forward. And my job is to guide you on that path. And I'm really proud of you. So that's the first thing I wanted to tell you is if you've never taken a multidimensional class before, this could be really weird for you. But get into it. Okay? Weird is fun. Traditional classes are kind of boring. And this one's going to take you on a Mr. Toad's wild ride through all kinds of different ups and downs and ins and outs. And I'm going to take you down crazy rabbit holes into ancient Egypt and before that into Lemurian Atlantis and, all of these, the Anunnaki and all of these civilizations. And I'm going to bring you back up to the United States and Canada and the world right now. And I'm going to dive you back in. I'm going to pull you back out. And I'm going to dive you back in. I'm going to pull you back out. And so get ready for working across timelines. But that's what you signed up for. This is alchemy. Okay? So this is the e-ticket. That's right. This is Disneyland. You know, I can't tell you it's not going to be weird sometimes, but I can promise you that you will not fail. You won't fail. The one thing I ask you for, and you can smoke, you can do whatever you need to do for class, okay? I don't do any of that because for me, I have to be completely present with you during class. So I'm very, very focused during class, but whatever you choose to do is okay. The one thing I'm going to tell you is this, and this is the last thing before I dive into, I am still a professor, I do still have notes, and I'm going to get through every one of my notes. I never finish class without going through all of my notes. You never miss a thing. But I will tell you this, Soul Shift is a year-long program. If it's possible, try to do this for the year. If you stop before then, you don't finish the class. And I'm saying that because that's my spirit guides. They give me, every year they give me a curriculum for a year. Some people call it a year and a day. I don't say it's a year and a day, it's a year. We are starting here January 13th. We will finish December 31st. That is the curriculum. You're not going to experience your full transformation before then. It takes a year. Why does it take a year? Because there are 4 seasons that align to 4 elements, and we can't finish the work without it. We're in winter right now in the Northern Hemisphere. It doesn't matter what hemisphere you're in. Okay, there's 4 seasons. Whether you're north or south, there's still 4 seasons. And it's going to take the whole year for us to go through these 7 stages of alchemy. If you stop at a certain point, you're stopping at that place. And at some point, you'll have to pick that back up and continue forward. And so give this the year. Okay, we have to, that's right, Jessica Hicks says we have to transit the wheel of the year. All of my programs work like that. So if you really want to experience the fullness of what I'm talking about, it starts today, it finishes at the end of December, if you want the whole experience, right? I love that. Annette said, I did stop for this summer for a bit, and I needed to, but I came back when I felt ready to resume. So that's the other thing. You can stop and start and come back and finish later. And I'm here for that too. Again, it's multidimensional. This isn't like, again, you punch your card here and then you punch your card there. It's not quite like that, right? But the full experience, the way I've designed it as a curriculum developer, is 12 months. And so if you give me the 12 months, I give you a new you. And it will take that long. So don't get frustrated, okay? I want to say the alchemical curriculum, and yes, Lori Roberts, 3,000%. Let me say this. I said it last night, but let me say it again. You do not need tools to do this work. Tools are helpful, and they're fun, and they're pretty, and they decorate your shelves, and they decorate your altar, and they make it more fun, right? We love our tools. You are the tool. Your hands, your mind, your heart, your energy system, you are the magic, okay? So even if you can't do the tools, take the class, is my advice to you. And try to pace yourself and do the year, okay? It's really important. Tools are always allies, but they're not the magic. They are not you. They don't take your place. They don't do what you do. Okay, so if you have to choose between education and tools, education is where you should put your commitment. Okay? That's beautiful. Lisa Pulisi said, the tools are a great reminder of the allies and the magic, but they aren't the allies and the magic. They never were. They weren't in Lemuria. They weren't in Atlantis. You're the magic. When I came into this life and I started working with tools, I felt comforted. I'm a 110 life path, which is the magician, right? In the major arcana of the tarot. And the first time I touched quartz, the first time I experienced fire, the first time I encountered water, the first time I inhaled the smoke of white sage, and I can tell you still the year and the day when I first smelled the smoke of white sage, because it was a remembering. It was like, whew. Those are poignant moments in my development, right? I can remember those moments. Do I have to have them to work magic? No. If I'm in the middle of the desert, if I'm in the middle of some other country, if I'm in an airport, I can still work magic with no tools. And I've always told you this, but some of you are new, and so you haven't heard me say it before. If I don't teach you how to do this with no tools, then I'm failing as a teacher. Because there will be a time, and a lot of you, look at you, you're emperors, you're magicians, right? There will be a time when you're in the middle of the forest, you're in the middle of an airport, you're in the middle of the desert, you're in the middle of whatever, a hot spring, and you have nothing with you. And you'll want to work magic. And you'll be like, why did she teach me how to do this without tools? So I'm going to teach you this year how to do magic with tools and how to do magic without tools, so that if you have them, great. If you don't, great, right? Because that's my job. And an alchemist needs to know how to do magic with tools and without tools at the same time. Because there will be a time when you have no tools and you have to work magic. And I don't want to fail you that way. Does that make sense? I love it. And I love that you guys know what your life path number is and your card and everything. I think I'm going to do, just Alexis and Claire, I do think I need to do a public seminar on life path numbers and the major arcana of the tarot, because a lot of people don't know. And at some point I should just, it would be an hour-long class of like, if you're a 1, you're a this, if you're a 2, you're a that, you're a 3, you're a that. And I want to do it here in Soul Shift, but could you guys plan that maybe for March or April? Because I feel like right now this planet's going through this ascension process and a lot of people don't know what their life path numbers are. So I want to bring that wisdom forward. I think it would be helpful. A lot of you know, and I'm proud of you for knowing, but some people don't know. And it's kind of like, it's not in our curriculum this year, but I would like to bring that forward for people so that they know. So you can invite your friends and your kids. I mean, my kids know their life path numbers, right? Your kids should know their life path numbers. Your godchildren should know their life path numbers. Your siblings should know their life path numbers. Your mom and dad, your friends and family, they should know their life path numbers and what their major arcana card is, so that they can have some perspective on that. So I don't want to make a huge class out of it, maybe 2 hours, but separate from Soul Shift, let's plan that, because I do think it's important wisdom. And that way you can share that class with your friends and family, and they can at least have that information. As soon as my kids were born, right? As soon as I was in labor, I'm like, here's their life path numbers and here's who they are and here are these people I'm parenting, right? It tells a lot about who you are. It's not the whole story, but I'm the magician, right? I'm here to teach you how to use the tools that are in front of you and how to teach you how to use those tools to improve your life, right? So a lot of you are 110 too, but anyway, so we'll do that later for your friends and family. That's not part of our purpose here, but I do want to do that later too. Okay, so for tonight, here's what I'm going to cover. I want to give you a little bit of an overview. We're going to cover a little bit of an introduction to alchemy tonight. We're going to go through your worksheets, which are so incredibly important. And every month we give you these worksheets. We work hard on these, so print these out. And then you're gonna 3-hole punch these worksheets and put them into your, if you have it, into your emerald tablet. So this is 3-hole punched so that when you open it, I have a bunch of stuff in mine, but when you open it, put your worksheets right here into your three-ring binder, and then you have your pocket here for other notes or other wisdom or other information you want to include, and you can put all of that in here. So that's why we made it for you. Isn't it cool? So this will be your notebook for the rest of the year, where you keep all of your wisdom and your information and everything from class. It turned kind of like red on you. I don't know why. But that's where you're going to house all your information from the classes for the rest of the year. Did you? I love that you put your Newman worksheet in there. I love that so much. So, and your tools, if you don't have them yet, can you guys see me okay? Does it look kind of weirdly pink all of a sudden? Maybe not. Alexis Sinclair, can you let Dave know that I turned pink and how to change the color balance on my camera, because I don't know how to do that. If your tools are not with you yet, it's USPS. We shipped them in many cases over a week ago, and we don't know what's going on with USPS because of COVID. So yeah, I do look kind of pink. Anyway, Dave will come up. Can you guys let Dave know that I turned pink all of a sudden? I look like an Oompa Loompa, which I'm okay with. I don't know how to do the balance thing. Dave will do it. I don't want to screw it up. I'm kind of a rose gold for you right now. All of a sudden I showed this and it completely turned it. Maybe if I show it again, it'll change it again. I'm okay with the pink, but it's a little weird. Okay. I'm going to do a little meditation with you tonight. You want to meditate tonight? I'm excited about that too. And then I'm going to close our ceremony. You have 20% off your class tools section, by the way, at sagegoddess.com with code ClassTools20, which includes the platonic solids from tonight or from today made out of healer's gold. So Team SG will put the link up for you. I think that's Dave right there who's going to make me not so pink. I held up my notebook, this one, and it turned me pink. Look.
You kind of look nice that way. I like it.
They said they like it, but
it's good. Hi, everybody. For those who don't know, I'm Dave. I'm the other summer sidekick. How about we don't keep holding it up? Is that better?
I'm pretty pink.
Well, you're pretty in pink.
I look like you pinched me.
Careful.
He's Irish. He could pinch me. Really take this in a weird direction.
Did you do a filter on it? What'd you do?
No. We're color correcting right now, everybody.
How's that? Is that better?
Somebody says,
I think that's a little
Barb.
better, isn't it?
It's pretty pink. It looks like you pinched me.
It was totally pretty and pink. It's better. They say it's better. Yes, much. I don't know. I don't see it.
I'm okay.
Is it good?
I don't know.
It's still orange.
Yeah, it's pretty pink.
You know what? You've all just been seeing too much orange for 4 years. You just, wherever you look. Oh,
really?
It's a dad joke.
That was a weird Trump joke. Okay, can we fix that though?
It's better. It's back to normal. They say it's back to normal.
Okay.
All right.
Hold white paper.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Bam. You want me to stick around? You need me help anymore with this, or are you okay?
We okay? I think we're okay.
Okay.
Okay. Dave made it funny. He sure did. Oh my God. What's even happening? I know. I have not been in the sun, so I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, it looks halfway normal to me now. New Zealand, I have nothing to drink but 7-Up, so sorry. Okay. Yeah, it was just too bright. Maybe I can turn it down a little bit. Oh, that's nice. Look at that. Look, I look normal. Okay. He left. This is better, right? I like this much better. Yeah, I'm not showing you your notebook anymore. Forget that. We got too weird for a minute. Now we're going to be normal. Okay. Okay, this is good. Now, I'm going to go full teacher mode for you for a little while. So let me explain how Soul Shift works. And I'm going to take a minute to explain this because some people are new, and I like to set expectations about how your class works. Ready? It's somewhat normal. It's as normal as I can be. You have 4 sessions a month with me in Soul Shift. This is session 1. Every time we gather for session 1, I want you to understand what session 1 is about. Session 1 is your teaching session. This is your intellectual session. This is your session where I deliver the bulk of your content for the month, okay? This is your learning session. And this is the focus of our alchemy each month. So session 1 has worksheets and printed materials and usually a quiz or some kind of astrology or something to anchor you in the wisdom of the month. And this month it's all about your star origins, okay? So this whole session for the next hour and 15, 20 minutes that we're going to be together is incorporating your worksheets, but I teach more than that, because if it's just worksheets, why do you need me, right? So I take it what I call off the page to give you additional insight, wisdom, information, okay? So that you have not just your worksheets, but you have a whole bunch of information that illuminates what's in the worksheets to give you a really vibrant intellectual experience. Session 2 is Crystal Masters, and that is your integration in a way. It's your application of this wisdom. So next week in Crystal Masters, we have our work with our Bronzite star. And we're going to do a journey to set intentions for 2021. And we're going to be in a waxing moon phase, which means we have builder energy to support us. And so we're going to be building 3 intentions in the astral realm and 2 intentions in the physical realm. Session 3 is always going to be your journey. Your journey experience with me is when you're not thinking and you're not applying. You're just being. You're breathing, you're sensing, you're allowing, you're releasing, and that's when your downloads and your wisdom and your integration of your spiritual components happen. And then session 4 is our crafting. That's your integration session. That's when all the pieces come together. The intellect from session 1, the application from session 2, the being from session 3, the downloads from your spirit guides, the creating of your craft in session 4. So you have learning, you have applying, you have being, and you have integration in session 4. And that's what Soul Shift is. So Soul Shift is the combination, it's the amalgam, it's the alchemy of tonight. It's all in your head. You're listening, you're taking notes. Alexis is taking notes. It's wisdom. Next week is all of the application. How do we work with a crystal and really have that experience? The next week is get out of your head. We're not applying anything. We're just being. We're sensing, we're relaxing, we're allowing, we're receiving. And then session 4 is how do we wrap it all together? Okay. In the meantime, other things are going to be happening. I'm going to be coming live into your Facebook group randomly when I'm inspired by spirit to do that. I'm going to be writing special things for you this year. And I don't know when they're going to come or how they're going to come or what they're going to sound like. Could be a poem, could be an essay. I'm in the middle of working on a poem for you right now that is all about the wisdom and the messages of this month. So those will be extra add-ons that happen in your Facebook group. And the totality of all of that is the experience of this class. Does that make sense? So I try to address each part of who you are, because some people love the intellectual, right? They love it's sexy. I love it too. It turns me on. Smart people, good ideas, fun conversation, that's stimulating to me. You add a glass of champagne to that, that's like as much as I needed in my life. I'm a very intellectual person. But for some people, that's not enough. They need the application. How do I do this, right? Like, what do I do with this tool? Okay, so that's session 2. Some people just are here for the journey. They're like, just give me a journey, drum for me, rattle for me, play your, your instruments, funky lady, and take me to another dimension. So some people session 3 is their favorite. And then some people at session 4, like, I want to make something. I want to take all of this and I want to put it into a tool or a piece of art or something. And so session 4 becomes their favorite. So it just depends on who you are and what you love. But each session does something different for you. So tonight is all intellect. Tonight is just, I'm going to take your brain and I want to massage your brain tonight. And if you like it all, then you're here for all of it, and that's great. But each session has a different kind of objective that it accomplishes. And then you get your coaching and your debrief, which is a recorded session where I answer all your questions. And for some people, that's their favorite thing. And I love being coached, so I totally get that. I love listening to my teachers talk about whatever they talk about, even if it has nothing to do with me. And so you're going to get a 2-hour audio every month of me just answering your questions. So that could be your favorite part of this whole experience. But that's why I come at it. So I'm a learning expert. I have a PhD in education, and my background is I have expertise in how adults learn. That's my gift to the world. So some adults learn by listening. Some adults learn by writing. Some adults learn by crafting. Some adults learn by just receiving energy. Some adults learn by doing something and modeling it. And so everybody learns differently. So I incorporate all those different pieces into it. But it's not like one session for me does it all. So you're not done after tonight, because after tonight we have the application, we have the being, we have the experiencing, and then we have the integration of the coaching and the consulting that I'll do for you at the end of the month. Does that make sense? Do you guys have any questions? Yeah. And Alexis is your guide in the Facebook group. So she posts and lets you know when to post your coaching questions. She lets you know what the journal prompts are. She posts your notes from classes. Yeah. And you get to see what kind of works for you. Yeah, so Catherine, just so you can see Alexis, Catherine is asking, how do we ask a question? So Alexis will give you all of that guidance about how, when, where, what, and make sure you're paying attention to the announcements in our Facebook group. So Alexis and I are both in your Facebook group every day, Monday to Friday, from 9:30 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. Not to be creepy, but we're just there like watching and responding and listening and paying attention to what you're sharing. So Diana wants to know what's up with the journal prompts. So this is where Alexis can be helpful. Jessica's asking where the journal prompts are found. So Alexis, if you can help and respond to that. Sometimes Alexis, your pinned comments, I can't see them, just so you know, in these lives. So I don't know if it's helpful to put it into the feed. Like when I click on your pinned posts, I can't see it. So I'm just sharing that too as feedback for our team. And then for the last session of the month, we have a craft. I don't want to show you your notebook because it makes my color really strange. But we have a craft for you this month, which came in your kit. It is this. Did you see this? So you get to decorate this and frame it if you want, okay? You can see your pinned posts? Okay, good. I can't see them, but so Alexis, it sounds like everybody else can see it. I just can't see your pinned posts. So this is the kind of coat of arms, and this is where you're going to plot your family tree, including your parents, your grandparents, your physical lineage, as well as your spiritual lineage, your star seed origins, all of that information. We're going to put this together on one kind of crest, and then we're going to, you can put crystals on this, you can decorate this, and we're going to frame this and keep this with our altar. So this came with your kit. Some people are saying they did not get this in their kit, Alexis too. So Alexis is your helper of all the technical things. What's in your kit, what's not in your kit, where are the journal prompts, all of that. Alexis is my sidekick who takes you all the way through all of that. I focus on the class, and she focuses on all the additional insight and information. Yeah, it should have been in your bag. And if you did not order the kit, that is something that Alexis will have to support us and tell us about too. Oh, yours came kind of crumpled? Maybe we can post this, Alexis, in the Facebook group so everybody can have access to the graphic of this. I think that would be kind of cool. So we'll see. It's good. This is why I'm having this conversation with you now, so I can kind of see who needs what. But it might be kind of nice to give you this in a downloadable version so that if you didn't get your kit, you can still do session 4 with us. Might be nice. And if yours was kind of crumply too. So Alexis, just a heads up, seems like there's a lot of people in that position too. Yeah. So she said she's going to post the graphic in the online classroom. Did you guys see that? Thank you, Alexis. That's really cool. So in your online classroom on stagegoddess.com, she's going to post the electronic version of this, so you don't have to even worry about it. Does that make sense? That's fantastic, because this is session 4. Now I want to say something about this too, and every session 1 isn't going to be like this. I mean, this is the first class, so I'm trying to break it all down and explain to you how things work. I know this month is tricky for some of you who are adopted or, you know, are not in love with your birth parents or don't feel connected to your physical lineage. Here's what I want to tell you, okay? And if you can't get into the classroom, Jerry, that's a separate issue, and you need to also let the support team know, because you do need to be able to access your classroom when you sign into your account information. So hopefully Alexis is seeing your comments. Alexis, if you can help on that technical side so I can kind of focus on the content side. So I know some of you are adopted or have had challenges with birth parents and other things like that, okay? Here's what I want to tell you. And I know this is tough, okay? So let's take a breath. You were born into your physical lineage here on this planet. And part of our work this year, okay, part of our work this year is to really integrate what that means. Even if you've had challenges with your birth parents, even if you never knew your birth parents, even if you feel disconnected from your ancestry, even if all of that is true, it's really important that you still take a look, okay? Just like people who tell me, you know, I changed my name, I don't feel connected to my name, I don't feel connected to my last name, I don't feel connected to my birth parents, I don't feel connected to any of that. What I want to tell you is, there's still medicine and wisdom in that, in knowing who you are and where you came from on the physical level. If you do not know anything about your birth parents or your lineage on this planet, it's still worth talking to your guides, asking them for wisdom, asking them for insight, okay? Because there's medicine there. Even if you change your name, your original name, the name that was given to you, has some medicine in it. And this year in alchemy, there's something really powerful about not disavowing that. Does that make sense? Not ignoring it, not releasing it necessarily, but really taking a look at it. If there's ever been a time, okay, and that's right, Jake, even if you change your gender, change your identity, change your name, change your family, know nothing about your family, there's a frequency and an energy to your name and where you came from that does have medicine for you. And I'd like you to just look at it, because that's alchemy. Does that make sense? If you're going to do this work, it's really about being willing to look at all of it. Even if you don't integrate it, love it, accept it, appreciate it, understand it. Do you know what I mean? there are parts of my background and my lineage and my everything that I don't fully understand, and I don't know, and some of them I never met, and I feel kind of disconnected from some parts of it, but I'm still working with it because that's what I came in with. Does that make sense to you? So I want to encourage you, even if you have just been like, no and no, I want to push all that away, or I'm adopted, I don't know anything about that. I want you to just take a look intuitively about where did you come from, who did you come from, why did that name come to you, right? So even if I never met my birth parents, but I was named Athena, I would still want to sit with, why did they choose that for me? Or even if I never met my birth parents and my adoptive parents named me Athena, I would still want to know, who were my birth parents, right? What was the last name? Where did they come from? What was that lineage like? Why, and just poke in there to the extent that you can. If it's too painful, too hard, that's okay. I don't want you to push yourself past where you're comfortable, but I do want you to push in a little bit deeper than maybe you have before, because that's alchemy. The whole work of this month is, who are you and where did you come from? Who are you and where did you come from? That's going to help you answer why you're here. Isn't that interesting? That's going to help you answer why you're here. And it can be a really complicated story. It can be a really easy story. It really can. One of the greatest mysteries for me, and I'll share this with you before we even get started, really. So when I was growing up, what I learned over and over, and more before my aunts died, when all of my aunts died, people stopped talking about what I'm going to tell you, because my uncles didn't talk about it too much. But before my aunts died, and my last aunt passed away, I want to say maybe 30 years ago. Last aunt passed away about 10 years ago, but the communication with her really stopped about 15 years ago when she got very sick. Okay, so before they all passed away, what I was being told was that my dad's family had come from Romania and had fled during the war, and that they were actually royalty in Romania, and that they were threatened. And so they fled from Romania to Greece, and that's why all my cousins have blonde hair. It's a whole thing in my family, okay? Because most of us do not have dark hair. Most of my cousins are blonde-haired and blue-eyed, okay? Which is not traditionally Greek. And so the last name in my family before Paracas was Moldavidakis, which means House of Moldavia. And the Moldavians were not Romanian, or were Romanian, they weren't Greek. Randy is Romanian, and Callie is Romanian. So the story that I heard from my aunts before they died was, your grandmother never wanted to talk about this because they thought they were going to be killed. They fled Romania, they fled to Greece, they're all blonde-haired and blue-eyed, and their last name was Moldavidakis, from Moldavia, not Moldavite necessarily. And so, but don't talk about it and all of these things. So it was always this like hush-hush, super quiet thing. Now Dave is Hungarian, right? So it's interesting how our ancestry kind of lines up. So then after all of my aunts passed away, all I ever heard was Moldavidakis, House of Moldavia, they were royalty, your grandmother was a princess, nobody wanted to talk about this, she was going to be killed, all these things, right? And then after my aunts died, the uncles were like, no, they over-exaggerated it, it wasn't really royalty, you know what I mean? Like, they all kind of downplayed it. But why did this story emerge? Why were people talking about this? And what did it mean, right? Moldavidakis, Moldavidakis. Why did they come from Moldavia to Greece, right? So it's interesting. So I've never made much meaning about it, because as soon as my aunts died, all of my uncles denied it. They were like, no, we weren't royalty. Don't listen to your aunts or whatever. But you all have a family history, right? Where you're like, why were they so quiet? Why were they didn't want to talk about this? They never want to talk about Romania. Never want to talk about why they were all blonde. They never wanted to talk about these things. So part of my journey and my legacy and my lineage is to figure out, who am I? Is there any, my aunts are all dead now, right? And my grandmother has passed. So is there any way for me to understand? Is there any there, right? Is there anything that's true about that story that I had been hearing about since I was a child, right? So, and I have no way of tracking that down. I don't know anything about it except other stories I was told, like, shh, you know, Moldavidakis, we don't talk about it, the transition from Romania to Greece. You have a legacy and a lineage too. And I think it's worth looking at. And even if you feel completely disconnected from it, right? And I'm reading your comments too. There's something in your lineage that's worth looking at. Even if you're adopted, even if you're like me and your uncles were like, don't listen to those crazy ladies. Nobody was royalty. They made all that up. I doubt my grandmother made it up, because she said it on her deathbed. Like, people don't say things on their deathbed that aren't true, right? They say things on their deathbed that they've been hiding for a long time, right? And I've never done any research into Moldavidakis and all of these things. I've never even looked into it. But isn't it interesting? So when you do this lineage research, and I'm doing it alongside you, the whole soul shift journey is me doing it with you. And when we do this, I feel like we open the books of history and we finally take a look. I'm okay with it all being not true. Maybe it wasn't true. I mean, again, people tend not to tell lies on their deathbed. But even if everybody wanted to minimize it and say it wasn't real, why was that story in my family? Why did that come up? Why did people feel the need to either hide it or not talk about it or make fun of it, right? So I want you to do the same thing in your family. What were the stories? What did you hear? What did people talk about before they passed away, right? What did, to Karen Carley's point, what did the immigrants in your family, when they Americanized their names, right? What did they Americanize them to? What did they drop off of their name to come to this country and give you a name that would make you kind of fit in and, right, and have it all make more sense for you? So I want you to look at your ancestry, look at the lineage, look at the names, look at the history. And what I want to tell you is, this isn't about like forgiving people or accepting people or appreciating people at all. This is just about figuring out who you are, where you came from, and what that means for you today. Does that make sense to you? It's not about anything else. It's really, really powerful, though, to Anna's point, right? Because I grew up hearing those stories and thinking, am I a princess or something? And of course, I'm probably not, right? But if my family had this story going on, what does that mean for me? And why didn't they, if they were trying to keep us safe, right? What was the lineage that was happening there? So, and the knowledge that you have is the power that you have too, for sure. It's interesting, isn't it? Okay. Now I'm going to take you somewhere else for a little while. So let's switch gears. Tonight's going to be like this, where we go over here and then we go over here. And who knows? I've often thought, because my grandmother was a very serious woman, and I don't think she would say that if it wasn't true, I've often thought, like, are there lands somewhere, you know, where our family had a legacy and a lineage, right? So I'm going to light our emerald tablet candle tonight. And I'm going to burn a little incense for us too. I'm going to light my charcoal disc. And I don't think I've ever even talked about lineage, my lineage, very much in our classes. And I'm only mentioning it tonight just because it remains a mystery for me why, once my aunts passed away, nobody ever talked about this again, right? You got to know the history. And then on my mom's side, it's a whole other mystery. It's too long to even get into with you tonight. But there's a lot of unknowns on my mom's side too. And when you have a legacy and a lineage of unknowns, it makes you feel like you don't quite know who you are. And the freedom that comes, though, is recognizing that you can create your own. You can breathe life into a lineage based on your intuition too. Right? When you don't have birth certificates and all of these things, it becomes an invitation to discover who you are absent all of that too. And so if you feel like, well, I don't know who I am or where I come from, I don't have birth certificates and all of those things, I'm not that different from you. I only have I'm so sorry, you guys, my lighters are kind of kaput tonight. I had my team send some home for me, but I don't have them yet. I may not be able to light my incense for you. I'm trying. But when you don't quite know where you come from, it gives you a little bit of freedom too. Let's see if I got it lit enough. Use the candle. Yeah, on your charcoal it doesn't quite work that way. Let's see. Let me try another charcoal disc. Hold on just a second. Well, we're not going to burn our incense tonight. I will have that ready for you week 2. So we'll focus on our candle tonight. We work with the tools we have. I've had some weird charcoal discs, but it's mostly my lighter. So anyway, we'll burn more incense next week when I have better access to that. But we have our candle going for tonight, and it's beautiful. So enjoy that. And then I want you to take your smoke elixir and smoke, as Alexa's posted in our Facebook group today. This elixir changes on you every hour or so. So just a little bit at your third eye, a little bit at your wrist for what you do, and a little bit at your ankles for where you go. And the reason we did these embodiment elixirs for you this year, by the way, the notes here in your elixir are styrax, geranium, birch tar, and smoke. And the reason we made elixirs for you this year, rather than for the kits, rather than oil-based perfumes, elixir, the word elixir comes from the Arabic al-iksir. Did you know that? I shared this with you earlier. So al-iksir in Arabic means from the ashes. So an elixir is something that rises you from the ashes, like the phoenix kind of. It's an energy that comes out of smoke, comes out of fire. It's very alchemical. And in alchemy in the ancient times, they made elixirs. But again, it came from the Arabic al-iksir, which means from the ashes. So every month this year, you're going to get an elixir, an al-iksir, that will connect you to the energy of the month. And calcination is the first phase of alchemy of 2021. So that's why we gave you the elixir called smoke. Woo! It is, but it doesn't work. I know. My torch, my team was supposed to send home another torch for me today, and I haven't gotten it, so let me try this one. But this torch is out of butane. I'll try it real quick, but anyway, I'll have everything ready Yeah, my torch isn't working. Let me see if it'll do just enough. It might do it, actually. Look at that little torch going. It's trying. It's really trying to get that charcoal going. Ooh, it's working. Okay, let's see. I have hope here. You ready to see if this is gonna work? Okay, let's see. You ready? Burn, baby, burn! Yes! So this is your Moringa Balm of Gilead, which is a love potion. I love the shaker. Do you love the shaker? I just love how it just allows you to put the perfect amount of incense on your burner. White sage, Palo Santo. Ooh. The cleavers is useful in commitment ceremonies. So tonight I feel like we're making a commitment to our spiritual growth. I love that. Look at the spirit guides making sure I have enough smoke from our incense tonight to get it going. It's perfect. But I will have better fire next time, I promise. It really made me work for it tonight. It's funny to be a sage goddess with no flame, but it teaches you to be resourceful. Okay. That is beyond perfect for me. I am very happy about that. And I'm going to send some of that your way too. Oh yeah, that's right, Karen. Wasn't that awesome? There's about a third of stones in your incense blend each month. So that's why this is so powerful. So there's a third stones and 2/3 incense. So enjoy. I'm very excited to work with that tonight. And yay, I feel like the spirits were here supporting us and making that work for us tonight. Okay. Now, are you ready for the proper education portion of our class tonight? Are you ready? Yeah, you can burn it in an electric incense burner too. So if you have one of those, just grab it, plug it in, and do the thing. The main use for this incense is for this phase of alchemy, which is about reducing everything down to its core elements and essence, and then beginning to build it back up for transformation. So this is about clearing, releasing, and allowing in this phase that we call calcination, which is the first phase of alchemy. So everything I'm about to tell you, that's what this blend is designed for. That's right. I'm glad you like smoke. Isn't it beautiful? It's one of my favorite perfumes we've ever made. So enjoy that one. I'm glad you like it too. Okay. You are burning what's in the shaker, darling. That's exactly right. Okay. So now I'm going to go through, I'm going to focus on my notes for you. So, and I will stop and see if you have any questions as we go through. But for the next half hour or so, I'm going to be really focused on your worksheets and on my teachings on alchemy. And this is your learning session. So each month, the session 1 is going to be really focused on your learning and the intellectual aspects of our work together. Are you ready? Okay. Now, let's begin. So alchemy, which is the focus of our class this year, Alchemy takes us back 2,000 years. And when I tell you these things, I want you to take a moment to really think about what that means. The human lifetime at best is 100 years. So when we talk about 2,000 years, and I'm going to make a case for you actually, it's more than 2,000 years. I think alchemy takes us back 15,000 years to Lemuria and Atlantis, which is why we're starting there tonight. We're talking about your star origins, right? We're talking about the first civilizations on the planet. We're talking about where you came from. And so tonight is about taking you back to those very initial civilizations. And we're going to talk about that in just a second, but I want to take you even further back to teach you about alchemy. And then we'll figure out where you came in, okay? And so alchemy is a very ancient science. Alchemy technically takes us back to Egypt, okay? Which many people call Egypt Kemet. Have you heard of that before? K-E-M-E-T? How many of you have heard of Kemet before? As another name for Egypt, right? So, and what's interesting about this is a lot of people who really identify with Kemet, in this modern day and age, are people who would consider themselves to be African American, right? And why is that? Why is that? Because Kemet, Al-Kemet, means back to the black earth, the black lands, okay? When I was at UC Irvine doing my undergraduate degree, which I finished in 1995, okay? There was a scholar who came to give a lecture that I attended he had written a book called Black Athena. And I encourage you to read the book. I mean, it's a very academic, very scholarly book, so it's not an easy read. But the premise of Black Athena is that we all come from Africa. We all come from Egypt. And I believe that to be true. Part of the reason why I really struggle with right? The aardvarks, right? Part of the reason I really struggle with racism, frankly, candidly with you as a human being, is that I think we all can trace our roots back to Africa and to this idea that we all came from these black lands, okay? So the idea that we discriminate against people with darker skin, to my spirit, doesn't make any sense to me, because that's where we began. Okay, so Kemet, again, K-E-M-E-T. If you look at the word alchemy, and you look at the word chemistry, and then you look at the word Kemet, they all come from the same root, okay? Everything began on the continent of Africa. It's part of the reason why I love African stone so much. It's part of the reason that I love the continent of Africa so much. I believe my lineage traces back to Africa. And again, I would make the case that everybody's lineage takes you back to Africa. And I think if we could ever prove that, our world would be really different. We all come from Kemet, okay? And so what is Kemet? So Kemet are these early origins on the African continent. So why does that matter to you for this class? Well, let me explain it to you. So I believe there were 2 experiments on the planet of Earth, okay, before there were any other forms of life, okay? And I have some Nigerian in my ancestry too, and Egyptian for sure, okay? So if you look at, let's take the United States, okay? Just imagine a map of North America. So you have the US, you have Canada, you have Mexico, right? Off the coast of California, so I'm a shitty drawer, but imagine like this hand is California. Off this coast, down to where you know Hawaii to be today, and all the way down to the Indian Ocean, okay, was Lemuria. Right off California, all the way down to the Indian Ocean. Huge continent. It was called Mu, okay, and Mu means mother. So this was the origin civilization. Other side of the United States. So here's California in my shitty map, okay, here's Florida. Mu is over here off the coast of California. Off the coast of Florida, extending all the way off the coast of Florida and down south toward the Caribbean, is Atlantis, including Bimini and some of these other places that people identify now, the Bahamas, right? And Mu was huge, you guys. Lemuria was huge. I really want you to think about this. What would it mean for a continent to be off the coast of California, subsume the entire region, what we call the, what is the name of that ridge? Oh, it's going to escape me. Does anybody know the name of the ridge, the underwater ridge below Hawaii? One of you probably does. Anyway, it takes the whole ridge under Hawaii. Forget Hawaii, right? Hawaii is modern. So the whole entire ridge under Hawaii, all the way down to the Indian Ocean. Huge, okay? And again, off the coast of Florida, you know, all the way through what we call Bermuda and Bimini and all these mystery lands, and all the way through the Bahamas and the Caribbean and Cuba and, you know, all the Caribbean islands today, all the way down, right? The Marianas Trench. Thank you, Kate and Marie. The Marianas Trench, okay? So we have these huge underwater trenches now that kind of show us that there were landforms there originally. So off of, down to the Great Barrier Reef, Catherine. So we have off the coast of California, we've got Lemuria Mu, off the coast of the eastern seaboard of the United States, down to the Caribbean, all the way through Haiti and Cuba and all the way through what we call Bermuda and all of that today, okay, off of that. So the US now sits in between what was these two original civilizations. The first was Lemuria, okay, where we now think of the Hawaiian Islands having been. And the Hawaiian Islands are beautiful and they're very special and they have this incredible energy. Why is that? Because the Hawaiian Islands sit today where we know Mu sat before. And Mu was a much broader civilization. It included much more different types of landforms and humanoid forms and all different kinds of forms of creation. So imagine Hawaii times hundreds, right? Post-Pangea, I believe this is post-Pangea, okay? But it depends. Some people say it's pre-Pangea, some people say it's post-Pangea, okay? So again, you look at the US, you've got Lemuria, you've got Atlantis. Lemuria came first, okay? And the theory is that the Lemurian civilization was an effort to colonize this planet with people who could hold a frequency, humanoids, right? We don't know exactly what they looked like. People, energies who could hold a frequency of unconditional love. So the idea was, let's put these humanoids here on this landform and see if they can create a civilization based on the idea of unconditional love, acceptance, purification, purity, and see how that goes, okay? And ultimately, that civilization fell, right, to a flood, right, which we can track that flood to the Christian Bible. There's a narrative of a flood in every major theological document that we have access to. A flood coming through, destroying, right? And so people say that the Lemurian civilization was 12 to 15,000 years ago. I think it was on that later edge, 13 to 15. Now what's interesting is that my mom had a DNA test done and it showed this really interesting disruption in her DNA, in her lineage around that 13 to 15,000 year period. It didn't give any details, but it just showed some kind of major disruption in the lineage around that time, meaning either famine, destruction, movement from one continent to another, some kind of collapse of the energy line around that civilization energy in that 12, 13, 14, 15,000 year period. It's fascinating, right? Okay, I think she did 23andMe or something like that. I don't know. I don't put a lot of weight in those things, I have to say, but there was some kind of like genetic disruption in the line at that like 12 to 15,000 year range, which again, it didn't identify what that was, but it just showed there was some kind of like disruption in the line, which could have been again, global catastrophe. It could have been some kind of shift in the DNA line. Something happened between 12 and 15,000 years ago on that side, okay? It's interesting. Now, when the Lemurian civilization fell, the teaching is that before that happened, that they were aware this was going to happen. And the priests and the priestesses took all of their wisdom and their insight and their knowledge, and they encoded it, they encrypted it into their crystals. And that's what we call Lemurian crystals. So they have this, what we call a staircase to heaven or a stairway to heaven. There's lines, right? Like braille lines almost on Lemurian quartz crystals that many people say hold this Lemurian wisdom in them. And if you've ever held a Lemurian crystal, I've held many of them in my life, right? I have a big one in my cabinet right here. And you run your fingers along those lines. Yeah, I think they are barcodes, Jennifer. I think they're some kind of, they're wisdom lines, they're destiny lines. And so that's what Lemurian crystals are. And they say that the Lemurian high priests and priestesses took their crystals and their scepters, which they used as their magic wands, and they took their other tools. Some people say the Andara crystals that are implanted in Mount Shasta or around Mount Shasta are also part of this. So they place their crystals into the mountains of Brazil and also into the mountains of Mount Shasta in California, right? And I also believe that there's Lemurian crystals that were transferred to Argentina, transferred to Mexico. I think it's much broader than, if you want my opinion, it's much broader than Brazil. I think it includes Argentina. I think it includes Mexico. I think it includes Shasta in California. I think it includes, we have a magnificent tourmaline mine in Southern California that has some of the rarest tourmaline crystals ever mined in the world. And I think those are also Lemurian quartz that comes from that mine. So if you want my 2 cents, I think there's more than just that. And I think it's why we feel the magic in Hawaii when we go there. When you go to Hawaii, there is a vibration and a frequency. And it is this vibration and frequency of unconditional love. There's other things there too, like ancestral magic and wisdom and grounding and ceremony and all of this stuff, and war and loss and grief, but there's also magic. And you can feel it. Like the minute you get off the plane in Hawaii, you can feel it. There's a vibration and a frequency, and there's nothing like it anywhere else on the planet, right? So we all feel these energies. And that tourmaline mine, by the way, is called the Pala mine, P-A-L-A, and you can still go there today and mine crystals from that. But all of this is very real to those of us who have experienced it, right? Same thing goes with Lemuria. So the Lemurians, when their civilization fell, their civilization fled as well, okay? And their civilization, remember, they're on the other side of the eastern seaboard of the United States. So they fled to Cuba, to the Dominican Republic, which is why I think we have Larimar down there. I also believe they fled to Tibet, Nepal, in the uppermost quadrant. They fled to Egypt, and they also fled to India. I believe they went as far east as northern and central Asia, and even South Asia. And so I think this is my theory, I think the Lemurians went to the U.S., the West Coast, parts of it, not all of it, and all the way down through Central and South America, as far south as Argentina. And then I think the Atlanteans went as far north as Tibet, Nepal, and formed the Himalayan ridge. And then I think they also populated all of Egypt, like the north, especially the northern part of the African continent, perhaps as far south as Nigeria, I don't know, certain parts of Africa, not all of Africa. I don't think they went as far south as South Africa. But then I also think they populated some other parts, again, going into northern and even into southern Asia. Does that make sense? So this is why I think we have heulandite and Larimar and some of these minerals that hold a lot of this Atlantean wisdom. And I think this is why we also have things like record keepers, which are sort of track marks of a lot of this movement of the civilizations. Okay, so this is where we have the cultivation then of the Aztec civilization. And before that, really the Toltec and the Olmec civilizations that sort of predated the Aztec and the Mayan civilizations, right? So we have the formation of the Central and South American forms of magic. Some people believe that through a portal in Northern California, that some of those Lemurians went underground and formed their own civilization within the middle of the earth, and that they still exist there. I can't speak to that. I haven't had a lot of experiences with that. But there are people who really believe that's true. And then the Atlanteans formed this entire wisdom system that began in Egypt and ultimately branched out to Greece and Rome and formed the basis of Western civilization. And so, Jennifer, I think that I think Avalon is Lemurian. I think Indonesia and Bali are Lemurian. I do. I think it's very possible that a lot of people just sort of scattered to these different parts of the earth. And I think in some places those civilizations still exist kind of uninterrupted, right? So here's where all of this lands for you. I want to kind of summarize this for you. You ready? I think every one of us came from a star system. And this is what your worksheets are about this month. I'm not going to review them with you point by point, because that's certainly work that I think is worthwhile for you to do, but you can go through it on your own. And there are different star systems that we came from. We give you a quiz on pages 3 and 4 and 5 of your worksheets this month, and page 6. And so depending on your answers, you came up either Sirian or Pleiadian, or you came in Andromedan, right? Arcturian. I'm Arcturian. Lyran. Orion. And then on to the Mintakans, which are also an offshoot of the Orion civilization. I think we all came from a star system before we came in through Atlantis or Lemuria. Now I'm going to tell you my theory. I think the Syrians came in through Atlantis. I really do. Now I want to say this too. So for Marilee, because it's a great question, it is completely possible that you came in through multiple star systems. And it's completely possible that you're both Lemurian and Atlantean. And it's also completely possible, you ready, that you were neither Lemurian or Atlantean. It's completely possible that you are on your first lifetime right now on this planet. And it doesn't mean you're new. It just means you haven't been to Earth yet. It means you went to other parts of our system. So you've been here, you've been conscious, you've been sentient for 20,000 years, but you just decided to come to our solar system this time. Why? I don't know. Do you know how big our galaxy is? I mean, it's galaxies within galaxies. So what I don't want to do is pretend that people on Earth are like some higher form of evolution. I don't think we are. And I think a lot of you, even if you are Arcturian like me or Pleiadian. So the Arcturians are mostly Atlantean and the Pleiadians are mostly Lemurian. But that's not even cut and dried, right? But a lot of you who are into science and sacred geometry and language and math and leadership and all those things like me are highly Arcturian, right? We came in to create language, to create the papyrus, to create the hieroglyphics, to create pyramids, to create sound chambers, to translate sacred geometry, to teach people metaphysics. We came in to do we came in to activate crystals. We came in to teach people how to grid and connect to the ley lines of the planet and what is a vortex and all these things. Like, I'm super clear that I'm Arcturian and I came through the Atlantean civilization, and I'm somehow very connected to Thoth, which makes me connected to alchemy and this entire lineage that I'm teaching you, which is reinforced through my material lineage, which is Egyptian, North African, and Greek, for the most part. So my lineage is kind of like cut, dried, and very clear, but not everybody's is that way, right? The Mintakans, by the way, it's spelled Mintakan. And the Mintakans, interestingly enough, are said to be the first ones ever to come earthside. And they are said to be the ones who are the most confused about why they're here. Like, what do you want me to do on this planet? Why am I here? How am I supposed to help these people? I can't help these people. I want to go home. So what's interesting and what connects a lot of us across the space and time, and you tell me if this feels right for you, a lot of us feel like we don't quite belong here. Have you ever felt like you don't quite belong here? I have spent most of my life, and I'm telling you, just across the board, feeling like everybody else feels like they belong here, and I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, I seriously sometimes feel like I look at people and I'm like, look at those humans. They're so interesting. They're eating sandwiches and they go to a park and they have a job. Why do they do that? Oh, and look, they fight with each other? Oh, and then they have political parties where they elect people and then they don't like this one person, but they like this other person? Aren't they interesting, right? And so I've spent my whole life feeling like I'm observing these humans like they're kind of part of a science experiment. And I'm like, and then I spent a good long part of my life trying to fit in. Like, look at me, I can be human, right? And it's like, I don't think I'm very good at being human. I think I look like I'm faking it, right? So, and then I have kids who are kind of the same way, right? They're looking at the humans like they're in a cage, right? Like, oh, how interesting these humans are, right? So part of what I love about this work that we're doing together is it's like, we kind of know we're not from here. We're not exactly sure where we came from. We're not exactly sure if we're doing this whole human thing correctly. And we're trying to do the best we can because we sense that we're here for a reason, right? Money, right? Siren of the Void said, I don't understand money. Me too. I'm like, oh, okay, so I give you $5 for something and then you give me a thing? Okay, like I can get with that. But I don't really understand why it's $5 or why that dollar means something. I mean, there are moments where I really have these conversations with myself like, this is very interesting. You human people and your food and the fact that you eat and, oh, look at you, you go running and things. Like, look at that, right? So anyway, I mean, we're laughing together, but the reality is some people don't have this experience. They totally understand humanity and they get like why we're here and they get that like working in things, right? Time for Cindy, right? Like, what is time? And people are like, well, you're late for that. And I'm just like, by your judgment, I'm late, but by my judgment, I came here right at the right time. But okay, I'm late. So part of what I wanted to do for you this month is remind you, I think it's possible to live your life 50-50, knowing that you're not quite from here, and yet you're here and you decided to be here, and it's good to show up here and do the best you can to be as human as you can because you're here to help these people without looking down on them and without judging them, right? You're here to help these people along. But you and I both know, okay, that after this is all over, we're gonna go back where we came from, and there's no time, there's no money, there's no food, there's no anxiety, there's no depression, there's no medication, there's no, you know what I mean? Like, you and I both know that when we leave here, we're going back to a place that doesn't have any of that. So like, this is kind of an interesting experiment, right? And so I spent the bulk of my life feeling I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in with like other women. I didn't fit in with like parents when my kids were young and stuff, because it just didn't really make sense. And so the freedom is, once and for all, what alchemy teaches us is don't fit in. You're not here to fit in. You're here to lead. You're here to shift a paradigm. You're here to teach what you know. You are so wise. You have so much infinite wisdom. You're not here to fit in. If there's one thing I can tell you tonight, you are not here to fit in. You're not here to be like them. You are here to figure out your unique signature energetic codes and to download those, to embody those, and to share those with people. And the right people are going to understand it, and the wrong people aren't. And that doesn't mean you're not a good person. It just means figure out where to spend your energy so that you are utilizing that energy in the best possible way. Does that make sense? So be who you are. Your full authenticity is welcome here. And in fact, I don't think there's been another time on this planet when your authenticity has been more needed. And it doesn't matter how weird you are or how different you are, or like, this is the time, this is the moment for you to rise up and go, I'm not like the rest of you. And I'm totally okay with that. I don't need to play by your rules. And you don't have to play by my rules either, but I'm here to support you in whatever way that needs to look like, right? And again, I don't think there's ever been a moment on this planet when we're more ready for this awakening than we are right now. Because we've figured out that the stuff going on here doesn't work anyway. Government isn't working, systems aren't working, education has completely fallen apart. That's my area of expertise, right? Whoops. Turns out education totally sucks, right? We don't know how to educate our kids. Our kids are coming in what we call autistic, right? So they're on the spectrum and they don't learn like we do. And what do we do with them? And what do we do with us? Like, the whole thing is falling apart. So if we don't bring a new paradigm into play, then we're not going to know how to advance this civilization to take it to the next level of where it needs to go, right? So Laura's asking, what if I have 2 star systems or 2 star seeds on the quiz? The reality is you probably have 4 star systems. You probably have 3 star systems that you came from. You probably started as one origin and then re-embodied and came back as another one and re-embodied and came back as another one and re-embodied. You probably were in Lemuria and it fell. And then you said, yes, I'll go back. Let me be Atlantean. I'll try and help them fix this. I'll bring technology and language. Okay, you can go back and do that again. So then you came back as an Atlantean. And then you're like, okay, I'm tired. I'll go to Egypt. I'll help them with the hieroglyphics. I'll help build the pyramids. Okay. So then you did that. And then you were done with that. And then you were like, okay, well, I'll go back one more time to Greece. And then through Greece, I'll help them bring language forward and science forward. Okay, thank you so much for doing that. And then you came in through Greece and you got really tired. And then you took maybe a 200-year break. And then you were like, okay, well, maybe now I'll come back through Renaissance England. That's interesting. Or I'll go to Glastonbury because that's kind of Avalon energy. So does this make sense to you guys? You didn't come from just one place. You started somewhere, but you reincarnated and reincarnated and reincarnated. So when you're reading this quiz, which my team and I did the best we could for you with this quiz, you probably show up as like 4 different beings. Kind of Pleiadian, kind of Arcturian, a little bit Lyran, sort of from Orion, tiny bit Andromedan. And you're like, what is this quiz? And your spirit would laugh at us for trying to even make a quiz for this because you've had all these different lifetimes where you've come back with all of these different gifts and skills. So my goal with tonight was just to really illustrate for you. And if it's clean and tidy for you, congratulations. For me, it's not that clean and tidy. But what I tried to create for you is, I want you to know it's complicated. And you're older than you think, okay? And you're not going to be able to wrap it up in a bow and say, I'm Andromedan, and that's it. Or I'm Arcturian, and that's it. I am mostly Arcturian, me personally. And I've had journeys where the Arcturian leadership has come to me and talked to me about why I'm here. And that may make me sound crazy, but I've had those experiences. Okay, so I'm mostly Arcturian. But I also understand I have these other, when I take the quiz, there's a little bit of Lyran in me, and there's a little bit of Andromedan in me, and there's a little bit of these other things in me too. And all of it is, and this is where I'm going with this is alchemy. You are a cauldron of creation. And your birth parents, let's take this to a different place for a second, can we? Now I want you to think about your birth parents for a second with a little bit of compassion. Can you do this with me for a minute? I was one of those people who you know, when I was young in particular, felt like my parents could have done a better job and they didn't do this and we didn't have that, and until they started learning all of this. And then I turned and looked at my parents, my human parents, with so much love and so much compassion. How in the heck were these two human beings supposed to support, create, nourish, provide for me? I mean, how? Like, in a way that would have been enough. Do you know what I mean? Like, it could never have been enough. Right? How am I supposed to support my kids? I mean, who are probably 1 billion years old and have been through 10 different iterations of their soul path. How am I possibly going to give them what they need in this human lifetime to make a go of this? I'm going to do my best. It makes me cry too. I'm going to do my best to give those kids everything I can. But I don't know where they came from, and I don't know where they're going. I only have them for this little bit of time, and I can't possibly know, right? And then Ursula adds, her parents were 19 and 20 when they had her. So here you are, 19 years old, you've got a 1 billion-year-old baby, right? Who came from 10 different star systems, and you've got no money, and or maybe you're right now, you're in the middle of a pandemic. How are we supposed to help these kids? And yet one day our kids are going to be like, well, you didn't do enough for me and you didn't support me. And what I will say is, you're absolutely right. No matter what I would have tried, it wouldn't have been enough. Because you're so complex and amazing and beautiful and powerful and mysterious and all-encompassing and completely conscious and sentient and aware and magical and prolific, and here I am trying to just be a human parent, right? So when we say our parents did the best they could, it's really not making excuses, right? It's saying thank you for even trying to take this 1,000,000-year-old soul who may have led civilizations that rose and fell. They may have seen their entire civilization crumble and be submerged under water and all of their wisdom lost. How are you supposed to take that soul and give it everything it needs, right? And we can't teach our children that, because they're too young. I can't explain this to my kids, but one day they'll understand. And so when I ask you this month in Soul Shift to indulge me for a minute and look at your lineage, I'm not asking you to accept the dad who was shitty to you, right? Or who abused you or you never knew. And I'm not asking you to forgive the mom who wasn't there that you needed, right? And I'm not asking you to fully accept everything about this life that you've stepped into, right? Because that's really hard to do. But I am asking you, take a look. Because in the 15 or 20,000 years that your soul's been doing this vibrational dance and pinging back and forth between Lemuria, Atlantis, Nibiru, right, Kemet, coming through then ancient Greece and ancient Rome, and then coming into ancient Europe, and then coming into the Renaissance, and there, all these things, like, maybe they didn't do the best they could. Maybe they really screwed it up. But there's something interesting about each part of this tapestry that you've been weaving, right? And it tells you something about who you are and why you're here. If you signed up for Soul Shift this year to heal yourself, the first step begins tonight. When you say, I am as old as time, I am as old as dirt. I mean, I'm older than dirt, right? I have 100 sets of bones buried on this planet alone, probably, right? But here I am now. I don't have conscious access to all of that wisdom, but I can at least try to put together where I think I came from. Because if I don't understand where I came from on some level, conscious or subconscious, then I can't understand where I'm going. And it's all part of the alchemy of who I am. And that's why I'm telling you, it's totally okay if you say, I'm adopted, I don't know, this and that. Then breathe into it, feel into it. Maybe you don't know who your mom was, maybe you don't know who your dad was, your birth parents, right? But again, that's very 3D, right? Where do you feel like you came from? Who do you feel like you are when you walk on this earth? And it's so fascinating because there's been a conversation going on a little bit in Soul Shift this past week about cultural appropriation, okay? And what I share with you in this first session of Soul Shift for the year is that's an interesting subject for me from this perspective, right? Who owns what? I mean, I could look at you and say, I own Egypt and Greece or whatever, but I don't own it. I mean, it's not mine. And so people get this very 3D sense of like, well, this is who I am, and I own this, and you can't do this because that's my tradition, or you can't have that because it's, and it's, but again, all of us are alchemized. That isn't just one. You're not just this lifetime. You're not just who those parents are. You're not just that stamp on your birth certificate or that stamp on your passport or that stamp on your thing, right? How do you even know what you own or what you don't own? By the color of your skin or your last name or your birth certificate? I mean, it's just, these things become really empty and kind of meaningless when you start to level up and really look at it across. And the gift of this is, right? You're all of it and none of it. You're in it, but you're not of it, right? You might identify as one culture in this lifetime, right? But have I always been Greek? Have I always been Egyptian? Really? I don't think so, right? I think I came from somewhere older, and I think I've had other lifetimes in other civilizations. So can I really look at someone and say, well, you shouldn't really talk about the Greek pantheon because you're not from Greece? How do I know how many lifetimes they had in that civilization? So we look at your physical lineage, right? Your last name, your passport, your birth certificate, all these things. And then we look at your spiritual lineage, right? Where does your soul feel like it's been before? When I read about Mesopotamia, I cry every time. My kids think it's so weird because every time, like when my son went through 6th grade curriculum, they have to study Mesopotamia. And then when my daughter went through 6th grade, they have to study Mesopotamia. And we're reading these books and they're reading the invocation to Enheduanna and stuff. And probably other parents are just reading this stuff with their kids and they don't care. And I'm sitting there going, I'm like reading this stuff and the kids are like, are you okay? And I'm like, it's just really hard to read about Enheduanna. And they're looking at me like I'm insane. But I can remember, my soul remembers the high priestesses of Mesopotamia and the first forms of language and all these things. And every time I look at it, it's like I have this visceral reaction to it. Like, what is that? Right? Or Pompeii for Callie, right? Like, or Avalon for Samantha, or Scotland and Ireland for Rhonda, right? Where you just sit there and go, and Zoe this last time with Mesopotamia, she's like, I think we should stop because this is obviously very hard for you. And I'm like, no, it's just very meaningful. Right? Or going to Hawaii and breaking down, or going to see the pyramids in Egypt for the first time and you break down, or going to Peru, or going to California for Janine, or right? And so why is that? Why can all the other parents read about Mesopotamia and I can't read 2 paragraphs without breaking down and crying because they destroyed my temples? Why is that? And it's because your soul has this memory, right? So we have to balance this respect for cultures, which I completely honor. You know what I mean? Like, we do have traditions in this 3D time space continuum that should be honored and recognized. But we also have to recognize that we are multidimensional beings who've been here many times. And so some of these traditions do feel like they belong to us, even though they're not. We don't have a stamp to prove it. Does that make sense? The deserts of Africa for angel, right? When I lived through the Gulf War, which was what, 1991, 92, 93? The Gulf War. Remember how they showed all the stuff on TV? If you're old enough, you remember. I couldn't stop crying. You know, I was 18, 19, 20 years old. And it wasn't because it was a war. It was because I kept watching them burn down these temples. And I remember sitting there watching it on TV and I was hysterical. And I remember having a conversation with my parents because they were like, why are you so upset? You know, and I was just like, I can't believe they're destroying those temples. Like, I just remember watching it on TV and just thinking, we can never have those back. What is that in an 18-year-old that does that? I had no reason to think those were my temples, right? Because it's a collective history. And that's what tonight's all about. So what is your collective history? There's something in your soul that's telling you this belongs to you. And it's time for you to reclaim it so that you can understand again. And let me tell you why we're doing this. Because the mantra of alchemy is know thyself. The only goal you should have this entire year is, do you know yourself well? Where you came from, who you are, what matters to you, what the line in the sand is for you, what your ancestors believed were fundamental principles by which to live your life. And those don't have to be religious, those can be spiritual, right? And once you start to know who you are and where you came from, you can start to embody that. And that brings you a lot of courage and strength. And so that's what enriches your life about this practice when you start to go, you know what? I'm not just an American living in California, right? Like, I have this lineage and it allows me to have compassion and joy and also love and respect for people I've never met because I share something with them in my soul and I know it's true and accurate. And that's what this is all about. It's really interesting, isn't it? So do your starseed quiz, even if you're like, well, I think I'm 10 different things and then I'm none of those things, right? And again, it's kind of superficial, right? The Lemurian qualities, peace, love, harmony, spirituality, healing, compassion. Atlantean qualities, technology, science, power, writing. It is a little superficial, but it's also accurate. We have certain leanings, right? Certain proclivities that we lean toward. And so enjoy that. I hope that all made sense. So if you don't feel like you belong here, you probably didn't come from here. And one day you'll go home. But in the meantime, what good can you do here? You're not here by accident. You're here to teach, to embody, to model, to support, to encourage, to love, to create and grow. And it doesn't matter whether you feel like you belong here or not. Not belonging here for me is a badge of courage. I don't belong here. I never have. But that's okay. Because it allows me to see this world through a different lens. I'm not dependent on this world. I don't need this world to give me anything. I'm here to do the work that I'm here to do, and then when I'm done with this work, I will go home. Right? I mean, it's kind of as simple and as complicated as that. How do you know if you're doing enough, if you're doing your whole purpose? You won't know. But you'll have a sense in your heart that you're doing the best you can. Sometimes when I lay down at night, I get this feeling from my spirit guides, and it's just this sense of like, you're doing your work, you know? And that's the best I look for. It's just, am I on purpose, you know? Am I helping? Am I supporting? Am I reinforcing? In this world where so many people feel disconnected and alone, am I reminding people that you might not be normal? You might not be from here. You might be an alien. But you're not alone. And we find each other, right, to say, I'm weird too. Want to be weird together? I'll be weird with you. Right? And let me tell you something. You know, the best advice I can give you tonight, and I have another half an hour of stuff to tell you tonight, so I hope you're okay with that. If you need to go for any reason, because I know it's like 6 o'clock already, but I'm not done, so I'm going to keep going. A lot of people need to hear that they're not from here and that you understand. Because most of the people I know are trying to fit in. And for some of us, there's no fitting in. And so the most beautiful thing we can do is tell people it's okay not to fit in. I don't fit in either, but I'll break the mold with you. I don't know what it means to fit in, but I love being here and I'm grateful. And every day I just listen, right? But I haven't ever fit in. I still don't. You know, even when the kids like were going to school, like other parents would look at me like, again, like I was an animal in a cage, like, oh, look at her in her habitat, you know? What a weird thing that is. And that's okay. Yeah, we find our kind. Okay, so let me, I'm going to rattle through the rest of everything I want to tell you tonight really quickly, and then I'll see if you have any questions at the end. Ready? I'm going to go. Yeah. But now you know why a lot of us who do this work have so much empathy for people who are told that they don't fit in. You know, you're different, you're not one of us. And it's like, this is why I've always been a champion of the underdog, or like the new kid at school who's eating lunch all by themselves and stuff. And I've trained my kids to be the same way, right? Like you go to that kid who's new at the school and you go sit with them and you be their friend and you make sure they don't feel alone, right? Because we in my family, we all know what it's like to feel like an outsider. So we make sure that nobody feels like an outsider, right? Yeah. Okay, so alchemy is 2,000 years old at a minimum. I would argue it's more like 20,000 years old. A couple of things I want you to know about alchemy before we begin. Ancient Egyptians had no word for religion. They had no word for it. Religion is not relevant in the domain of alchemy. And I share that with you because I think once again, it teaches us that this isn't about religion. So many times I have people come to me and go, well, I was raised Christian, but you know, this work seems like it's kind of not Christian. This is not religious work. The ancient Egyptians only had words to describe magic. And they had 3 words to describe magic: Mer, Ka, and Ba. It's really true. That's where the Merkaba comes from. They had 3 words. Mer, which was light, because even in alchemy, so the Egyptians borrowed this from Atlantis, right? So I see you, Deb. Deb's saying, I want to know where I can reach out to get my answers to my questions, but I don't see your question, Deb, so let me know. If you ask a question in the feed, I will try to get to it for you, if I can. Well, they worshipped gods, but it wasn't a religion, Sharon. Right? I mean, you had Isis and Osiris in the Egyptian pantheon, right? And you had Ma'at, right, who was the goddess who embodied the laws and but it wasn't a religion per se. right? It was a way of understanding the dynamics, the relationship between the material world and the spirit world. So Myrrh was light, Ka was spirit, and Ba was body. And the ancient Egyptians understood that they were composed of three different things. They were composed of light, they were composed of some kind of embodying force, right? And then they had this thing, this physical skin and stuff, right? The Ba. And so they understood they were composed of these three different components, but it wasn't connected to like a religion where if you didn't believe it, you went to a bad place, and if you did believe it, you went to a good place. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't connected to that. If you have a DNA test, will it help you understand yourself better? I don't know, because it's one facet of your diamond. It helps you understand this body better. It helps you understand your Ba, but it doesn't help you understand your Myrrh or your Ka. My rain disc. There's nobody else in the room. Did you guys hear that? It just played itself. That's never happened before. Okay. Now, the alchemists, however, did you hear it? That's in the corner over there, and there's nobody there, everybody, so hello. I mean, I have a big butt, and I cannot lie, but I don't think it's a big enough butt to, like, I'm shaking my booty, and I can't make that happen again. Okay, so the alchemists wanted to know how to live forever because they saw the gods, immortal, right? And the alchemists wanted to know how to not die. That's really one of the main goals of alchemy. So they wanted to create this thing called a philosopher's stone, right? That if they worked with it or held it or they mixed it with their potions, right, that they could live forever. And in fact, there's all kinds of stories about the philosopher's stone actually being created, and that when people worked with it, that certain people lived 200, 300, 400 years, and they documented some of this. Like the people were seen at 200 years and 300 years old when they worked with the philosopher's stone, which is the byproduct of the alchemical process. So the ancient Egyptians wanted to figure out how to live forever. And that was the whole goal of alchemy. How do we take these different elements and create this elixir, right? This elixir. How do we create this amulet or this philosopher's stone? How do we create this form of magic that if we work with it, we'll never die? And that was the whole goal of alchemy, right? I know Crystal says it's hard not to think of Harry Potter right now, but there is something very Harry Potter about this. And if you think that she did not study alchemy in creating that series, I would beg to differ. I think she was quite well versed in alchemy. Okay, so who is an alchemist? Let's explain that too. An alchemist is, this is my definition, you ready? Anyone who seeks to learn how to transform a person or an object from one state to another by separating the lower qualities from the greater qualities, taking what we call the prima materia, which is your inner darkness, and transforming it into what we call your magnum opus, your great work. Let me explain what that means. And I agree. I believe Jesus was an alchemist. I believe every avatar of what we would call God consciousness has been an alchemist, right? The Buddha was an alchemist for sure, right? Yeah, well, and it's interesting, right? They believed by going through the mummification process that they could ensure a swift passage to the afterlife and that the soul would live forever. And to a certain extent, the soul does live forever. But the alchemists wanted to figure out how the body could live forever. Could we make this thing live forever? And the answer is no, because this thing has a timestamp on it, right? And Carl Jung was an intense student of alchemy. when you look at the Myers-Briggs inventory, which Carl Jung devised, he was really the brainchild behind it. Even though people use that in corporate contexts and coaching contexts, I've taught it to you before, that is an alchemical tool to help you understand how you personally embody and integrate the elements into the core and the essence of who you are. So the Myers-Briggs inventory is a very like Muggle example of an alchemical tool. Does that make sense? I love it. And Tammy was saying she's alchemized with sobriety. So sobriety, and thank you for that, Tammy, by the way, for sharing that, because it just creates space for other people to share their experiences too. Sobriety is alchemy. It's transforming your needs and desires from one state to another. If you think about it, almost everything is alchemy, right? The creation of life, having children is alchemy. Sex is alchemy. Right? Recovering from illness is alchemy. It's transforming from illness to wellness. Losing weight is alchemy. Quitting smoking is alchemy. Cooking is alchemy. I mean, almost everything that you do, if you were to break it down, is an alchemical process, right? And I think so. So Heather said, so could you say that alchemy and transmutation are the one and the same? I believe so. I mean, by my definition, they are, because transmutation is shifting energy. Transmutation for me, let me see if I define it the same way you do, Heather, is taking a low vibration energy, whatever it is, and transforming it into usable light. And that's alchemy. And here's what I'm going to tell you. And I want you to know this for this year because it's so important. And that's why tonight I'm going long, but I want to build this foundation with you because the foundation is so critical to the work that we do. You are going to see me this year having a lot of patience and compassion for people as they go through the process. And sometimes you might get frustrated and be like, well, but that person keeps talking about the same thing over and over again. They keep talking about the same problem. They keep talking about the same dynamic. They keep talking about the same whatever. And you might say, well, why do you, Athena, you keep talking about her, you let them. And I'm going to explain to you why I do. Because an alchemist believes there's no waste. I don't believe anything is wasted. And some people can alchemize something in a single blow, right? They can have a breakup in a relationship. They can totally see how that breakup is good for them. They can transmute it really quickly and move on and move into a new relationship, and pow, they're off to a whole different reality. Some people, it takes them 10 years to heal from a breakup before they can alchemize that breakup into strength to allow them to move into a new relationship. It doesn't mean that one person is better than the other or stronger than the other. It's just that alchemy takes a different amount of time for different people. So you might get frustrated with me this year and be like, really? Like, that person has been talking about that thing for so long. Like, why are you holding space for that? And it's because it isn't always easy. There are still energies and sorrows and griefs in my life from 10, 20, 30 years ago that I'm processing, that I'm alchemizing. I trust that I will work my way through them when I'm ready. Does it mean that I'm not a great person? Does it mean that I'm not smart? Does it mean that I'm not doing the work? No. It's just that certain things in my heart take longer. Other things happen and I'm over it in a day, right? And I can move on. So just be gentle with people this year as they alchemize, because some things are easy to alchemize. Do you know what I mean? But some things, a long-term marriage, right? An abusive relationship, the loss of a career that you really loved, the death of someone who died too soon, too young. How do you alchemize that? Sometimes it's really hard. And then the anniversaries come up and it all kind of comes up again. The loss of a child. How do you alchemize that? I don't have a way to tell you how to do that. I can tell you that it's possible, right? Like, I can tell you it's possible because anything can be alchemized, but I can't tell you how long it's going to take you. And some of those alchemies require a longer period of time and a little bit more patience. And sometimes you have to, it's cyclical, right? So you gotta work on it and then you come back. And then you work on it and you come back. And if it seems like I'm being codependent with somebody, I'm not, but I'm simply trying to hold space that some things are harder to alchemize than others. And I'm glad that you guys understand that, because I have had people in Soul Shift kind of be critical of me because it may look like I'm coddling someone, but I'm really not. It's really, really hard for some people. And you may look and say, well, I could alchemize that in a year. But I want you to be aware, especially if you're ever going to teach this to other people, don't put people on a timeline, because what they're able to alchemize and what you're able to alchemize are going to be two very different things, right? Okay. That's right. There isn't a lot of room for judgment in alchemy. There's a lot of room for witnessing and holding space, and you're not meant to take on other people's work. It's their stuff. But it's kind of like, let people have their process. If they need to talk about it 100 times, let them talk about it 100 times. I mean, it's no harm, no foul, right? If they have to talk about it one more time, great. Like, they're talking about it one more time. When I have a friend in my personal life who's like, do you mind if I talk about my ex-boyfriend one more time? It's like, no. I mean, if you need to talk about it, be conscious and aware of why you're talking about it. But if you need to talk about it again, talk about it again, and then talk about it again, and then talk about it again. And so sometimes this happens in our Facebook group. So I want you to not get frustrated with people, because part of learning how to be an alchemist is recognizing you may be super fast as an alchemist, right? Everything gets transformed, but somebody else may not be. And that judgment can be really hard for those who are, because again, some losses are so big, you guys, that it takes a lifetime to alchemize them. And again, I have some wounds in my heart that I'm not sure I've healed yet. And I don't know if I'll ever heal them, to be honest. I mean, I'm pretty good about some of them, but there's still some things, like if you were to ask me about it, like I'll tear up. You know what I mean? So does that mean I've alchemized it? I don't know if that means I've alchemized it, but let's create space for people to go through their process. It's really important. Okay. What I'm taking you through this year is called the path of return. This is an important phrase for you. There's a couple phrases tonight that are really, really important for you to hear. So I'm glad you're resonating with that, because alchemy does not equal fast forward, you're done. Okay? Alchemy equals becoming conscious of your process. Because sometimes we relive things over and over again so that we don't have to heal them. Alchemists want to heal, but sometimes they have to relive things over and over again as part of the process of healing. It doesn't mean they're not healing. It just means it's not on your timeline. So that's the difference. Okay, the path of return. The path of return in alchemy takes you from ignorance to illumination. Let me say that again. The path of return takes you from ignorance to illumination. Ignorance meaning, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I feel like this. I don't know what happened. I don't understand, right? I'm in ignorance. To illumination. I know why this happened. I understand what it meant for me. I know how to work with the energy. I understand why, how, and when to transmute it. So my goal, right, as Belinda's saying, is to take you from ignorance to illumination. I just want to light the way so that you know why you're stuck, or why you can't figure this out, or why it's taking you so long. As long as you know the why, the rest of us don't need to know, but you need to be on that path from ignorance to illumination. The one thing we can't support in an alchemical context is people living in ignorance, which is pity. Right? Like, oh, feel sorry for me. I have such a hard life. I don't even know why I'm here. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know. That's not alchemy. And that's not an alchemist. An alchemist says, I want to know this. I want to know why I'm here. I want to know why I'm in this relationship. I want to know why that breakup happened. I want to know why I experienced that loss. I want to know what to do with it, right? It's kind of like a Saturn return, Janisa. It's kind of an interesting metaphor that you're bringing up, right? So that is the difference between somebody who is not on the path of alchemy and somebody who is. Somebody who's not on the path of alchemy is ready to just be in ignorance. I don't know, the universe is against me, I'm not meant to be happy. The victim mentality is not alchemy. So what I'm looking for in you is, are you on the path to illumination? If you are, then yes, continue, talk, explore, right? Reiterate. But you need to be looking for, to Jackie Robinson's point, what's the lesson here? Why did I go through that breakup? Why did I lose that person? Why have I lost myself? Why don't I feel like I'm enough? Why do I constantly feel alone? Why do I feel scared? Why do I have this irrational fear? These are the questions of an alchemist. So if I do see you in pity victim mode, I am going to push you a little bit, okay, toward illumination. And it's not going to be because I want you to get on a timeline or do it faster or anything else, but it's just going to be, if you're sitting in a I'm sad, look at me party, that's not alchemy. Alchemy is, I want to figure out why I'm here doing this shit over and over again. I want to figure out why I'm sad every May of every year on this anniversary. I want to figure out why I can't seem to find a partner to love me unconditionally. I want to figure out why I don't understand my career path, right? So this is the line I'm drawing this year. If you're stuck, it's okay with me as long as your goal is to get unstuck. Does that make sense? We can't sit in a place of just going, oh, poor me, life is just unfair. That's not alchemy. That's victimhood. And victimhood is not in alignment with alchemy. Alchemy is, it may take me 20 times at this, but I'm going to figure this out. And when I figure it out, I'm going to heal myself. And I don't need anybody else to heal me. Sometimes I need you just to listen to me and let me process and let me go through my thing and reflect back to me, right? And illuminate my path with me. But I don't need you to feel sorry for me, right? That's the difference. So that's very important. Alchemists recognize that there is useful, and please hear me on this. Alchemists recognize that there is useful energy in all forms of creations, all emotions, and all states of being. But alchemists do the work of transformation that requires conscious awareness and reflection. Let me say that again. I wrote it, so let me write it. Alchemists recognize there is useful energy in all forms of creations, all emotions, and all states of being. But alchemists do the work of transformation that requires conscious awareness and reflection. When I'm angry, it's useful. When I'm frustrated, it's useful. When I'm resentful, it's useful. When I'm jealous, it's useful. When I'm grieving, it's useful. There's no waste there. It's what I do with my grief, my resentment, my jealousy, my anger, my frustration. It's what I do with those emotions. Those emotions, because all energy is neutral in alchemy, if I take those emotions that are lower vibration and I transmute them and I transform them into usable energy, functional energy, right? So I can take my anger and see that underneath it is creativity. I can take my rage and I can see that underneath it is a sense of real joy and purpose if I can figure out what it's about. If I take my sorrow and I can transform it, then I can work with it. I don't want to hide it or put it under a pillow or pretend it's not happening, right? I want to say, you know what? I'm really angry today. I'm angry because this is injustice, and I'm angry because this isn't working for me. And then if someone mirrors that back to me and says, okay, talk to me more about that. So what's underneath that anger? What's fueling that anger? And if I say, well, really what's underneath that is I want to create something beautiful and I feel like this is an obstacle to it, then there's actually creativity under there. And if I can shift all the other stuff out of there I can actually allow what's underneath it to rise up and bubble up from the bottom of the well, and then I find my gifts. It's like, wow, there's art under there, you know, there's beauty, there's creativity, there's strength, there's power, there's authenticity, there's and what's really interesting is what's underneath all of that is actually your healing from your pain and your disease and your illness and your autoimmune disorders and all of that. Because all of the pain and the illness and the disease that you experience is because you've got a bunch of shit piled on and you don't know how to exfoliate it. You've allowed the resentment and the fear and the anger and the hurt and the resentment and all of this to pile up, and your body can't even move anymore. So you have to start to like relieve, take the layers off. And Soul Shift is a place for you to come and say, I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm resentful, I'm jealous, I'm frustrated, I didn't want to be treated that way. And if you can't do it here, where are you going to do it? But again, you can't just live in those emotions. You got to slough that stuff off. It's like barnacles on you, and then allow what's underneath that to rise to the surface. So again, if we see you kind of living in the anger and living in the resentment and living in the frustration, that's not going to heal you either. You can't just indulge it. But to Cindy's point, I want to create a healthier relationship with my anger, right? Anger isn't something to be ignored, denied, repressed. It's coming up to be awakened and to be brought into your conscious awareness so that you can acknowledge it. And then it'll burn itself off. But if you just stuff it down into your intestines, and then all of a sudden you're like, why do I have, you know, whatever kind of IBS or, you know, like, that's when it starts to impact your health. And it might be like Georgia says, I don't have anger, but Georgia might have sorrow, or Georgia might have resentment, or Georgia might have frustration, or Georgia might have, you know, mine is grief and sorrow. And I know most of it's not mine because I come from a lineage of people who suffered ridiculously, right? So I've had to learn to recognize that when I get into those grief patterns, it's not really mine. So how do I alchemize it and turn it into beauty, turn it into creativity, turn it into generosity, turn it into something that I can use, right? Something that actually will benefit me. And that way I'm not passing it on to my kids. They don't have to keep living through it, right? If your people suffered too, which a lot of our people suffered in the last couple generations, then it's important for you to alchemize that. And that could be a great reason for you to be in the program, right? Yeah, Ursula said, I found my anger as a shield over my fear. And her fear is ancestral. So what do we do with that, right? Like we have to take the lid off that trash can and go, what's in there? You know, we have to open up that suitcase and go, and is this yours? Part of alchemy is acknowledging some of it doesn't belong to you, and creating space for it to be processed through you. And the ancestors knew you were going to do this. You are the highest evolutionary form of your lineage. You know that, right? They knew you were going to come here and do this once and for all. They're counting on you to do this. They couldn't do it. They were too mired in it. They didn't have the tools. They didn't have the awareness. They didn't have the perspective. And now here you are, with the awareness, the tools, the support, the community, the place, the wisdom, you know, if you're not going to do it, who's going to do it? It becomes this really big call to action, right? Did you offer to come here or were you chosen, right? I feel like every time I heal the grief in my line, I feel like my grandmothers are grateful. Because they didn't heal it. They died with it. They made the best choices they could, and they lived with as much joy and purpose as they could, but they died with a lot of grief. Unreconciled. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. There's so much more I want to tell you. I'm also aware of our time. What I'm going to do, there was a meditation I wanted to lead you through tonight, but I don't want to keep you too long. So if you're okay with it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to record it for you. Does this sound good to you? As an audio. I'm going to do this for you tomorrow. Because I don't want to keep you past too late. And I will record it for you in the morning, is my plan. And then I will post it in the classroom page and also in our Facebook group, because the meditation I designed for you for tonight is called the Meditation on Prima Materia. And the way I designed it is I'm going to have you sitting in basically a river of this black water, which is what calcination is, right? It's the beginning, it's the darkness. And in that river, through the meditation, I'm going to have the waters part and break out into the 4 elements, and have the 4 elements kind of rise up around you. So you'll have your earth, your fire, your water, and your air. And then I'm going to have you, for a certain part of the meditation, I'm going to have you stand up, and I'm going to have you see if your body actually moves toward the elements to show you which element you need to alchemize, so that you have a physical experience of that. So I will record that for you. Would you prefer, maybe what I can do, let me think about it, how I can do that for you. I might just record it visually, just like this, but offline, and post it for you. So that way you can also see it, because have you ever used your body as a pendulum? You know how to do this, right? When you stand up, your body will actually naturally gravitate toward the 4 directions. Okay. So maybe I'll do it as a visual. I'll record it. I mean, I don't mind recording it as a video. Sometimes people like the audio, but I know we also have a couple of people in the space who really need to see me speaking so they can read my lips too. Okay, so I'll figure out how to record it for you, and I'll do that tomorrow. But there's a couple more things I want to cover tonight really quickly. There are 4 stages. This is the one thing I really wanted to point out to you tonight. There are 4 stages of alchemy. Oh, here it is. Okay. This gets me really excited. I'll do video. I like video anyway, so I'll do video for you. There are 4 stages in alchemy, okay? And I told Alexis about this earlier because I thought it was just really, really cool. This is one of those things, and if you've been with me for a while, you know, my passion is to show you that all of the traditions and the lineages have things in common. That's my truest passion. One day, that's what I'll say, is my goal in life was to show you that the Egyptians and the Native Americans and all of the populations of this planet were really working on one kind of energetic level. And then we all took it and kind of in our own directions, right? So this is the Lakota medicine wheel. Right, this is the medicine wheel that I was taught by my teachers, my earliest teachers, where the north is white for earth, right? And here it says air, but traditionally north is earth, and then the east is traditionally air, the red is traditionally fire, and the west is traditionally water, right? So high level, this is a traditional Lakota medicine wheel. The correspondences don't matter. Here's what does matter. There are 4 phases of alchemy, and they are Negredo, which means black, Albedo, which means white, Citrinitas, which means yellow or golden, and Rubedo, which means red. And where the Lakota medicine wheel traditionally goes clockwise, the alchemical medicine wheel goes counterclockwise. The first phase is Negredo, the second phase is Albedo, the third phase is Citrinitas, and the 4th phase is Rubedo. Meaning that we start in the darkness, And then we move our way around the wheel this way, down to the source of creation. Isn't that fascinating? Why do, what I would say, two of the most fundamental sources of wisdom and creation that we've ever had access to, right? It probably looks opposite the way I was showing it to you. But traditionally, we go this way in the wheel. So we usually start in the east and then go to fire, water, and earth. In the alchemical medicine wheel, you start here over at the west with water. And you go down to fire. So you're still going clockwise, but you're starting at a different point. Traditionally, you start in the east. Over here, you start in the west. So I have a theory. I can't prove it. Nobody's ever written about it, right? Is that the Lakota medicine wheel, the colors of the medicine wheel, are actually rooted in alchemy. In the Negredo, Rubedo, Albedo, and Citrinitas phases. And it's because everything starts in the darkness of the abyss, right? And then, so you start in the darkness, and then you move toward the albedo, which is the whitening phase, the clarifying phase. And then you move to citrinitas, which in the alchemical tradition means you incorporate the light of the sun and the light of the moon. So this is where you become, you divide into masculine and feminine, and then you move into rubedo, which is the phase of the philosopher's stone. Some people say the philosopher's stone was a ruby, and that's the stone that allowed you to live forever and to have perfect health and all of these things. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So I wanted to read this one passage to you from Genesis in the Bible because, again, so what I'm showing you is I think the Lakota medicine wheel is alchemical. I also think Genesis in the Bible is alchemical. So here are the first lines of Genesis from the Old Testament of the Christian Bible. You ready? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. The Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." Right? We started in darkness, and God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and he called the darkness night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. Is that interesting to you? Yeah. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. I'm telling you, whether you look at the indigenous traditions, the Christian traditions, the Kabbalistic traditions, which ultimately led to the Judaic traditions, there's alchemy in all of them. It predates everything. Isn't that interesting? So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you tonight. And we'll talk more about all of this in the coming weeks. Okay. So the meditation will come tomorrow. I want to give you a quick overview of where we're going. And I mean like 5 minutes, and then that will conclude our work for today, unless you have questions. Yeah, the alchemical wheel is pre-religion. That's why I'm sharing it with you. And I think what happened is Christianity incorporated in its own way, the indigenous traditions and practices incorporated in their own way, and you can see the pickup in almost every tradition that we follow in modern times, right? It's fascinating to me. Okay, so what I've done in Soul Shift this year is I've taken the 7 stages of alchemy, which are, and I'll break them down for you. calcination, dissolution, separation, conjunction, fermentation, distillation, coagulation. And you don't have to know all of that right now, because traditionally those were stages that people went through when they were doing physical alchemy, right? Like taking lead and trying to make it into gold, okay? What I did is I took those 7 physical stages of alchemy and I broke it into 12 months of a curriculum for Soul Shift for this year. So in January and February, we are in that, what they call the Negredo stage, that dark stage, okay? Where we are a little bit in the abyss, right? We're figuring out, who are you? Where did you come from? Who are your ancestors? Why are you here? And allowing you to play here for just a minute, right? You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to figure it out, right? This is in the beginning of stages of creation. This is really what we call the prima materia. I want you to struggle here a little bit for the first couple of months of our work and figure out, who are you? Why are you here? If you're ever going to do this work, now's the time, right? So we're gonna play here a little bit. So in January and February, we're doing this work, calcination, which is about breaking you down into the core elements of who you are and extracting your essence separate from all of your identities, right? So Athena, who isn't a mom, who isn't a wife, who isn't a daughter, who isn't a teacher, who isn't a, do you know what I mean? Because all day long, all I think about is who I am to other people. I'm their mom, I'm your teacher, I'm his wife, I'm their, but who am I separate from all of that? That's what we're doing in January and February, is trying to figure out really what's the essence of who you are, okay? Then when we get into March and April, we're going to be releasing parts of you that aren't authentic, letting them go. We'll do a little grief and releasing ceremony. And I want you to begin to see yourself without fear of what you aren't. Well, what if I'm not this? What if I'm not that? What if I'm not perfect? What if I'm not going to be like the best wife on the planet? What if I'm not the perfect mom? What if I'm not the best teacher you ever had? Right? What if I don't know it all? What if I don't have it all? What if I can't live up to everybody's expectations? And really getting down to the core of who you are without all of those expectations and relationships. Just who's the essence of who you are. So that's the work here. Then when we get into the albedo phase, which takes us into April and May, this is immersion, discovery, and openness, understanding your role. So once we leave here, once we figure out who we are in this first quarter of the year, then we move here. And this phase, which is all spring energy, which I think it lines up really beautifully with the wheel of the year. This phase is about, great, now you know who you are. What are you going to do about it? What gifts do you have? Who are you going to help? Who are you going to heal? How are you going to do it? Do you have to start a business to do it? If you already have a business, is it the right business? And so we're going to spend the spring looking at, how do you bring these gifts into the world? And what if they're weird gifts? I mean, I didn't think I was going to be teaching this stuff. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't, this is all about articulating. How do you bring, and it's emergence, it's sovereignty, it's understanding that you are here, it's all individual you. Now you're in relationship with other people. And so how are you going to bring those gifts forward to support the collective? We're gonna figure out how to coexist with everything that you are, including your shittiness, your bad temper, your resentment, your anger. We're gonna make a place for all of it here, because ultimately your authenticity is your gift to the world. And if you take away the parts of you that you don't like, you're actually not showing up fully authentically as the fullness of who you are, right? Then, so once we've marinated, we've integrated, we're all unified, we're fully accepting who we are, we're not denying who we are anymore, it's all part of the picture, right? Then we go into the Citrinitas phase. And this phase is about clarity, purification. Remember, this is air element energy. So here we are moving towards summer. This is about expansion, merging with higher consciousness. You are now refined, right? We've sloughed off all the stuff that isn't working, isn't serving you, isn't even part of who you are. And we've refined and figured out ultimately what the core essence of you is and how you're going to manifest that essence in the world. And so this is your clarity, purification, and expansion phase. This is also where we figure out what prosperity looks like for you and how to manifest it in light of the fullness of your authentic being and how you bring that forward in the world. And then the last phase is self-realization and actualization. So this is, how do you embody? You've figured out who you are. You've shed everything that isn't authentic to you. You've fully embodied your gifts. And so now how do you come into the world fully integrated, fully aware, self-actualized and self-realized? You've got confidence, but you're also humble, right? So we haven't just, done all of this so that you can have an ego now. It's, how do you bring this forward without ego? In just pure service coming forward. So toward the end of the year, this becomes a mentoring conversation about, okay, so once you leave this container, once you leave this experience, how does this manifest for you? How does it support you financially, emotionally, energetically, to be living a different life than you are today, right? And absent a lot of the frustration, absent a lot of the anger, absent a lot of these things, because you've learned how to integrate it. You've acknowledged all of these things, and you've allowed them to become part of you. So now there's harmony, peace, alignment, balance, because nothing is out of whack. It's all now synergistically part of who you have become. So, and sustainability, I love that too from Cindy. And unconditional love too, because this is the whole process of this. Over here, we don't know if we fully love ourselves yet, right? There's still part of me that's like, do I really love that part of myself? By the time you get to the bottom of the wheel, you've found a place for it, or you've let it go. You've either found a place for those parts of yourself, or you've said, you can't go for the ride. And you've released them with grace through ceremonies that we're going to do, through tools that we're incorporating, through processes that I'll be teaching you. So there's a lot that goes into this, but it's really interesting to show you this kind of overlaid on what we traditionally think of as the medicine wheel, right? But it actually has these really interesting alchemical roots too. And acceptance comes here. Acceptance comes here and here, mostly here. Acceptance comes in this phase because think of this phase here as shining the brightest light on every part of who you are. And this is the all is welcome phase. Unless you decide it's not, because it doesn't need to travel with you, right? Some parts of who you are actually do need to be released and surrendered, because they'll wear you out and they will actually repel people from you, right? There does need to be a softening and an allowing and a creating of space. And sometimes it's about extracting certain parts and pieces and saying, you know what? That doesn't need to go for the ride. And so I can release it with love. And you will decide this year to let go of some of those parts of yourself that are just too prickly to love. And we all have them. Yeah, Lizette said, so this year is kind of like a very gentle, sober, slow Aya ceremony. Yes, this year is like a very slow, gentle, non-medicinal ayahuasca ceremony. I would say that's very accurate. I'm going to slough you off. And that's almost everything I wanted to go through with you tonight. So I'm going to extinguish my candle. there's so much more. And so I leave you tonight with a card that I pulled during our card reading earlier today called the Ever Unfolding Rose. And it was such an important card. It was kind of the final card of our readings today. And the theme was cracked open, it's happening for you, not to you. And what I want to tell you is this. And I won't always have 3-hour classes. I just really wanted to set a nice, solid, firm foundation for you. Life is happening for you. It's not happening to you. But I'm here to support you while you come to that awareness. Because that's a really difficult awareness to come to. Sometimes it feels like it's happening to you. But I want you to come back to that mantra over and over again. This is happening for me. It's not happening to me. When one door closes, another door opens. When one blessing leaves you, another blessing arrives in its place. And it's hard to see that sometimes when you're in it. And I can tell you that as someone who's been through loss, grief, illness, whatever you've been through, on some level, I've been through it too. And so I want you to know this is happening for you and not to you. And my intention is that everything you learn this year, because I'm only going to teach alchemy once. I won't teach it again next year. I don't repeat my curriculum year to year. My hope is that, and my intention is that you'll take this and you'll incorporate it and you'll teach it and share it with other people too, in your own way, right? And in that way, this work will live on. And maybe somewhere 10 years from now, you'll be sharing your version of soul shift, you know? You'll be sharing your version of alchemy. You'll be sharing your version of what this means. It may look very different. But that's my intention, is that I want to give this to you this year in hopes that you take it and bring it to life in your own way in the years and decades to come. And the greatest fear of the Egyptians and the Greeks, and I've shared this with you before, but since this is my tradition, I can tell you this. My ancestors' greatest fear was that their traditions would be lost. That's why hieroglyphics and writing and libraries and wisdom traditions and oral traditions were so important to my ancestors, because they believed that when people stopped saying their names and when people stopped reciting their texts, they believed that's when people really died, right? That's what the Book of the Dead in the Egyptian tradition teaches us. And when people stop saying your name and stop teaching your wisdom, that's when you die. And so my hope and my intention is that you will keep these traditions alive by continuing to learn them, embody them, and ultimately by teaching them in your own way one day. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It's true. That was the second death. You die one time when your body stops breathing, but your second death is when they stop speaking of you, when they stop sharing your traditions and your wisdom. So thank you for keeping this alive. It's very important to me and to all my relations. So amen, aho, on we go. Thank you so much for being here tonight for session 1 of Soul Shift. Thank you for staying as long as you did. Most of you stayed for the whole 3 hours. I am very thankful for that. So here's what else is coming up. So tomorrow I'm teaching my really fun wand making class on YouTube from 3 to 4 tomorrow. So I hope you can join me for that. Next week is Crystal Masters from 4 to 6 p.m. on Wednesday. So I'm very excited about that too. And so I will see you hopefully tomorrow afternoon for wand making. And if not, I will see you next Wednesday for session 2 of Soul Shift. I'm proud of you. And I'm thankful for you. And of course, the work continues in our Facebook group as well. So Alexis and I will be there, as we always are, Monday to Friday, to answer your questions and to support you and to extend your learning there. So we look forward to that as well. Have a great night, you guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you very soon. Thanks for being here.